There comes a time in every man's life when his heart, once full of love, trust, and sincerity, faces its deepest test. Not from the world, not from failure, not even from himself, but from someone he once believed would never cause him pain. When a woman hurts a good man, it is not just a story of heartbreak, it is the story of transformation, awakening, and rediscovery of inner power. A good man's love is not loud, it is steady, patient, and real. When he loves, he does not chase attention or validation. He gives from the heart because that is who he is. His love is built on truth, not ego. He believes in loyalty, not convenience. In a world full of temporary feelings and fleeting connections, a good man's love stands as something rare, a commitment, a promise, a reflection of his character. He doesn't just love to be loved back, he loves because it's his nature to nurture, to protect, to build, and to believe in something greater than himself. When a good man opens his heart to a woman, he does so with full trust. He shares not only his joy, but his fears, his dreams, and his insecurities. He gives her access to the parts of himself that the world never sees. His strength doesn't lie in how much he can control, but in how deeply he can feel. He loves with intention, with the desire to grow together, to see the woman he loves become her best self. To him, love is not a game of possession, but an act of devotion. He is the type of man who stands by her side through storms, believing that love is proven not in perfect days, but in the hard ones. A good man's love carries patience. He understands that people are imperfect and relationships require effort. He doesn't run when things get hard. He listens, he learns, and he tries again. His heart believes in the power of forgiveness, in giving second chances, in building trust brick by brick. He invests in the relationship because he knows that love, like anything valuable, takes work. He values consistency more than grand gestures because he knows that showing up every day with honesty means more than promises whispered once in passion. There is something deeply spiritual about the way a good man loves. His affection is not merely physical, it's emotional, mental, and soulful. He sees the woman he loves as more than a partner. He sees her as part of his purpose. Her happiness matters to him, not because he wants control, but because her light adds meaning to his own. He finds joy in giving, peace in protecting, and strength in seeing her flourish. When he says, "I love you," it is not just words, it's a vow that lives through his actions. But what makes his love even more powerful is its purity. It is not rooted in manipulation or fear of loneliness. He doesn't use love as a weapon or a tool to gain something in return. His love is free of calculation. It is genuine, raw, and selfless. That kind of love is rare in a world that often confuses desire with care and attention with affection. A good man's love remains steadfast even when misunderstood. He continues to give his best because he believes that real love must come from truth, not from expectation. Yet even as he gives his heart, a good man carries an unspoken vulnerability. Beneath his calm strength lies the silent hope that his love will be respected, not exploited. He hopes that his patience won't be mistaken for weakness, that his loyalty won't be taken for granted. Because when a man loves with such purity, he opens himself to the possibility of deep pain. He risks being misunderstood, overlooked, or even betrayed. And still he chooses to love because his spirit refuses to let the world make him cold. A good man's love is a quiet revolution against the modern idea of love as a transaction. He believes in the old values: trust, respect, loyalty, communication, effort. He knows that true connection isn't built in a moment but over time, through the simple act of showing up again and again. His love doesn't demand attention, it earns respect. He doesn't need to prove his worth through words because his actions speak louder. His love doesn't fade with challenges, it deepens with them. When he gives his heart, he gives it entirely. He remembers her favorite things, supports her dreams, and listens when her soul is tired. He protects her not only from the world, but also from her own doubts. He makes her feel safe, not just in his arms, but in his presence. His love is a sanctuary, a space where she can be fully herself without judgment or fear. He does all this not because he expects praise, but because it brings him peace to see her at ease. But even a good man, no matter how patient, deserves to be loved in return. His heart, as strong as it is not unbreakable, Behind his steady composure lies the silent hope that his efforts will be valued, that his love will not be met with indifference. Because what hurts the most is not rejection, but being unappreciated by the one he gave everything to. Still, he does not let bitterness define him. He knows that his ability to love deeply is a blessing, not a curse. A good man's love is not perfect, but it is real. It carries depth, integrity, and devotion. It is the kind of love that doesn't just fill the heart, it builds the soul. He loves not to possess, but to uplift. He loves not to impress, but to express his truth. His love is his legacy, the unseen force that leaves every soul he touches better than before. Even if the world doesn't always see his worth, he remains the same, strong, loyal, and kind. Because for a good man, love is not a performance, it is the essence of who he truly is. When a good man is betrayed or taken for granted by the woman he loves, it strikes a part of him that words cannot easily reach. It's not just the pain of lost love that cuts deep. It's the pain of realizing that all the honesty, effort, and faith he poured into someone were met with carelessness. The world teaches men to be strong, to hide emotions, to keep their pain buried. But a good man feels everything. He feels it quietly, deeply, and fully. When that heartbreak arrives, it doesn't just wound his heart, it shakes his entire sense of purpose, making him question his worth, his judgment, and sometimes his belief in love itself. The pain of betrayal is not only emotional, it's spiritual. When a man gives his love in truth, it becomes part of his soul's expression. So when that truth is rejected or disrespected, it feels as though a piece of his soul has been taken away. He replays moments in his mind, wondering what he could have done differently, trying to make sense of something that rarely makes sense. It's not the loss of the woman that hurts the most. It's the loss of trust, the collapse of belief in something sacred. He wonders how someone he saw as his peace could become his pain. But in this chaos, a strange thing begins to happen. The silence that follows the heartbreak becomes a mirror. He starts to see himself, not as he was in love, but as he truly is. The same pain that shattered him begins to reveal hidden parts of his strength. His mind, once filled with dreams of togetherness, now turns inward, seeking understanding. He starts to question not just why she hurt him, but what he must learn from it. Every broken promise becomes a lesson. Every unanswered question becomes a call to grow. The heartbreak becomes his teacher, and the pain becomes his awakening. Through sleepless nights and quiet mornings, he begins to see the truth that was always waiting beneath the surface. That pain is not the enemy, it is the messenger. It shows him where he gave too much, where he ignored his own needs, where he mistook sacrifice for love. He begins to realize that love should never cost a man his peace, his purpose, or his self-respect. The same love that once blinded him now becomes the light that guides him toward deeper wisdom. He learns that not everyone is capable of loving with the same purity he gives, and that's not his fault. This is the stage where a good man's awakening truly begins. It's not an explosion. It's a slow, steady rising from within. He starts to reclaim his energy from the memories that haunt him. He begins to speak kinder words to himself. He no longer looks for closure from the one who caused the pain, because he understands that peace is something he must give himself. The pain that once made him feel small now becomes the reason he stands taller. He realizes that heartbreak doesn't destroy good men. It refines them. It burns away illusion and reveals truth. When a man goes through betrayal, he often feels as though the foundation of his belief in love has crumbled. But in time, he understands that what was broken was not love itself, but his attachment to a false version of it. Real love, the kind that uplifts, inspires, and heals, still exists within him. He learns that love was never meant to come from someone else. It was meant to be shared between two whole souls, not used as a patch for emptiness. The pain teaches him that the first person he must love, protect, and remain loyal to is himself. This emotional awakening brings both clarity and sorrow. He sees the difference between those who say they love and those who truly do. He recognizes manipulation disguised as affection, inconsistency hidden behind charm, and emotional games that once blinded him. He no longer falls for the illusion of love built on words. He looks for love that breathes through actions. His standards shift. His spirit evolves. The man who once gave blindly now gives wisely. The man who once chased approval now values peace. He understands that betrayal did not ruin him, it revealed him. It showed him who he is when the mask of romance falls away. It tested his ability to rise, to forgive, and to rebuild. It forced him to stop giving his best to those who only gave him their half. And in that revelation, something powerful happens. He learns self-respect. He no longer apologizes for loving deeply, but he refuses to love carelessly again. His heart remains open, but his boundaries become sacred. As he heals, he also begins to forgive. Not because she deserves it, but because holding on to bitterness would chain him to the past. Forgiveness becomes his strength, not his surrender. It allows him to release the emotional weight that once kept him stuck. He stops asking why she hurt him and starts thanking life for showing him what he deserves. Through tears, silence, and reflection, he becomes a man reborn. This transformation is invisible to most. On the outside, he may appear calm and distant, but inside, something magnificent is happening. His soul is rebuilding itself. He begins to live again, not through the lens of pain, but through the clarity of truth. He starts to focus on his purpose, his growth, his dreams. He channels the energy once spent on heartbreak into becoming the man he was always meant to be. In time, the pain that once felt unbearable becomes his power. It no longer defines him. It refines him. He no longer seeks love to fill a void. He seeks it to share abundance. The betrayal that once weakened him now becomes the foundation of his strength. He walks differently, speaks differently, and loves differently. The world will see the same man, but he will know he is not the same. For when a good man is hurt and chooses to rise, he becomes something unbreakable, a man awakened by pain, guided by wisdom, and anchored in truth. When pain enters the life of a good man, it first feels like destruction. Everything he believed in, love, loyalty, honesty, seems to collapse at once. His heart becomes heavy with questions that have no clear answers. He wonders how something so pure could lead to so much hurt. But as the days pass and the noise of heartbreak begins to fade, something unexpected begins to emerge from within him: strength. Not the kind that shows through pride or denial, but a quiet, unshakable strength that is born from surviving what once seemed unbearable. The pain that tried to break him becomes the very fire that forges a stronger version of himself. Transformation doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in discomfort. A good man's strength is not built in the moments when everything is going well. It is built when his soul is tested, when his heart is broken, when he has to find meaning in the middle of loss. The hurt he experiences becomes his turning point. It forces him to stop seeking validation from others and to look inward. He begins to see that the real power of a man lies not in how much he can endure for someone else, but in how deeply he can remain true to himself despite the pain. When a woman hurts a good man, she might think she has damaged him permanently. But what actually happens is far more profound. The betrayal pushes him to evolve, to understand himself more deeply than ever before. It strips away illusions about love, about trust, about people. It removes the layers of naivety that once blinded him to certain truths. He starts to recognize that love without self-respect is not love at all. He realizes that being loyal to someone who disrespects his worth is not an act of strength. It is an act of self-abandonment. And from that realization, he begins to rise. The transformation of pain into strength is not immediate. There are nights filled with silence and memories that refuse to fade. There are moments when his chest feels heavy and his thoughts feel like weights dragging him down. But with every passing day, he learns to breathe differently. He learns to carry the pain without letting it define him. He learns to walk through the darkness without losing his light. The same heart that was once shattered begins to beat with purpose again, slower, steadier, wiser. He starts to see his pain not as something that destroyed him, but as something that shaped him. A good man learns that suffering has a purpose. It teaches him discernment. It shows him where he gave too much of himself, where he stayed too long, where he ignored the red flags because of love. Pain becomes his teacher, not his enemy. It refines his understanding of what love should feel like. Not chaos and confusion, but peace and respect. He realizes that real love is never supposed to cost a man his joy or his identity. Through heartbreak, he learns the difference between attachment and connection, between dependency and devotion. And once that understanding settles in, he becomes unshakable. When he begins to heal, his energy changes. He no longer seeks revenge or validation. Instead, he seeks balance. He focuses on growth, on purpose, on becoming the man he always wanted to be. He stops trying to prove his worth to anyone and starts living in alignment with his truth. He becomes more patient, more grounded, and more selective about who gets access to his heart. The pain has taught him the value of peace. He no longer chases love, he attracts it by being whole. In this transformation, his definition of strength changes. Strength no longer means pretending he is unaffected. It means allowing himself to feel the pain without being consumed by it. It means standing tall even when his heart still trembles. It means forgiving without forgetting, moving forward without bitterness. He learns that true strength is not in hardness, but in resilience, in the ability to remain kind even after being hurt. He understands that bitterness would only chain him to the past, while forgiveness sets him free. Through this journey, he also discovers the power of solitude. In the silence, he learns who he is without the noise of another person's opinions or expectations. He begins to rebuild his relationship with himself. He finds comfort in his own company and peace in his own growth. He starts to enjoy his own strength, the quiet kind that doesn't need applause. The more he invests in himself, the more he realizes that he never truly lost anything essential. He simply shed what was holding him back from becoming who he was meant to be. This transformation marks a rebirth. The man who once defined himself by how much love he could give now defines himself by how much love he carries within. He no longer gives his energy to those who drain him. He shares it with those who inspire him. He no longer measures his worth through someone else's appreciation. He measures it through his own peace of mind. The heartbreak that once seemed like the end becomes the foundation of a new beginning, a wiser, stronger, freer version of himself. The beauty of this transformation is that it cannot be undone. Once a good man learns to turn pain into power, he becomes unstoppable. The world can throw its storms, but he remains grounded. Love can come and go, but he remains centered. His peace is no longer dependent on circumstances or people. It lives within him. He realizes that the strength he gained from heartbreak is not something temporary. It is permanent armor, forged in fire, purified by pain, and sealed by understanding. When a woman hurts a good man, she may believe she ended something precious, but in truth, she awakened something greater. She forced him to find his own power, to embrace his self-worth, to evolve into the man he was always destined to be. The pain that once weakened him becomes his greatest teacher. It molds him, strengthens him, and prepares him for a love that matches his depth. Through his tears, he learns courage. Through his heartbreak, he learns wisdom. Through his healing, he finds peace. And through it all, he discovers that no matter who leaves or what breaks, the strength within him will always remain. When a good man is hurt by a woman he trusted, his first instinct is not always revenge, it is confusion. He cannot easily understand how someone he once loved so purely could cause him such deep pain. His heart wrestles with the contradiction of loving someone who broke him. There are days when anger rises like a storm inside him, when he feels the need to make her understand what she has done, but something within holds him back. That something is his character, his moral compass, his awareness that darkness cannot drive out darkness. He knows that if he allows anger to control him, he would lose the very goodness that once defined his love. So instead of reacting, he begins to reflect. He learns that the true strength of a good man lies not in retaliation but in restraint, not in vengeance but in forgiveness. Forgiveness, however, does not come easily. It is not a single act but a process, a long, painful unraveling of emotions. A good man must first face the depth of his own wounds. He must allow himself to feel the betrayal, to grieve what was lost, and to confront the reality that what he thought was love may have been only an illusion. Forgiveness requires honesty, and honesty demands courage. He cannot forgive by pretending he is unaffected. He can only forgive by acknowledging that he was deeply hurt. Yet, as he sits with his pain, he begins to realize something profound. Holding on to resentment does not punish the one who hurt him. It only poisons his own peace. As he reflects, he sees that forgiveness is not for her, it is for himself. It is the key that unlocks the chains of emotional bondage. The woman who hurt him may have walked away, but her actions linger in his thoughts, in his sleepless nights, in his hesitation to trust again. Every time he replays the betrayal, he gives her pain more power over him. But the moment he decides to forgive, he reclaims that power. Forgiveness does not mean that what she did was right. It means he refuses to let her wrongs control his spirit any longer. It means he chooses freedom over bitterness, peace over pain. This kind of forgiveness is not weakness, it is wisdom. A weak man seeks revenge because he cannot handle the discomfort of his emotions. A wise man processes that discomfort, transforms it, and uses it to strengthen his spirit. When a good man forgives, he is not excusing the betrayal, he is evolving beyond it. He is declaring that his peace of mind is worth more than his pride. He learns that letting go does not erase the lesson. It simply allows him to carry that lesson without carrying the suffering. Forgiveness also teaches him humility. It reminds him that everyone is flawed, that even the person who caused him pain was acting out of their own unhealed wounds. This understanding does not make the betrayal acceptable, but it gives it context. It allows him to see that people often hurt others not because they are evil, but because they are broken. This realization softens his heart without weakening it. He begins to see her not as an enemy, but as a mirror reflecting the imperfections of humanity. He does not hate her, he pities the part of her that could not recognize the value of a good man's heart. In choosing forgiveness, he also rediscovers compassion, not just for her, but for himself. He begins to treat his own heart with gentleness. He no longer criticizes himself for being too kind or too trusting. Instead, he honors those traits as evidence of his integrity. He understands now that loving deeply was never his mistake. His only mistake was expecting everyone to love with the same purity. But even that mistake becomes a lesson that enriches his wisdom. He learns to forgive himself for staying too long, for hoping too much, for believing that love alone could fix everything. Forgiving himself becomes the most healing act of all. As he continues to heal, his energy begins to shift. He no longer carries bitterness in his eyes or anger in his tone. The heaviness that once lived in his chest begins to lift. He starts to smile again, not the forced smile of someone pretending to be fine, but the genuine peace of a man who has finally let go. Forgiveness becomes the bridge between his pain and his peace. It allows him to step out of the past and into the present. It transforms the wound from something that defines him into something that refines him. And in this quiet transformation, something miraculous happens. The woman who once had power over his emotions no longer does. Her name no longer stings. Her memory no longer hurts. She becomes part of his story, but not the author of his pain. He looks back not with hatred, but with gratitude. Gratitude for the lesson she unknowingly gave him, because through her betrayal he found his strength. Through her absence he discovered his independence. Through her actions he learned how to love himself better. Forgiveness does not erase the past, but it changes its meaning. It turns heartbreak into wisdom, betrayal into boundaries, and pain into purpose. A good man learns that by forgiving, he is not losing, he is winning. He is winning his inner freedom, his clarity, his power. Forgiveness allows him to move forward without dragging the weight of yesterday behind him. It gives him room to love again, not with naivety, but with awareness, not with fear, but with strength. Eventually, he learns that peace is the real revenge. There is no greater response to betrayal than living in serenity, succeeding quietly, and keeping his heart pure. The world expects a broken man to become bitter, but a truly good man surprises everyone. He becomes better. He uses forgiveness as his shield and grace as his weapon. He no longer fights the past, he flows with the present. The woman who once hurt him may never understand the depth of his forgiveness, but that no longer matters. What matters is that he has risen above the pain with dignity. In forgiving, he has not lost his power. He has reclaimed it. He has proven that no betrayal, no heartbreak, and no disappointment can destroy a man who chooses peace over poison. His heart may have been broken, but his spirit remains whole. Through forgiveness, he walks forward lighter, wiser, and free, no longer defined by what was done to him, but by what he chose to become because of it. When a good man is broken by love, he eventually reaches a stage where he begins to see beyond the pain and starts to rediscover himself. At first, the heartbreak consumes him, clouding his vision and drowning his spirit in silence. But as time passes, the fog begins to lift, and he starts to realize that what he lost was not just a relationship. It was a reflection of how little he valued himself in the pursuit of someone else's love. This realization is painful, but it is also liberating. It is the moment he understands that his worth was never tied to the way someone treated him. His value was never dependent on another's ability to recognize it. His self-worth comes from within, from his integrity, his heart, his actions, and his growth. As he begins to heal, he slowly rebuilds the connection with the man in the mirror. For too long, he had seen himself through the eyes of the woman who hurt him. He measured his worth by her attention, her affection, and her approval. But heartbreak has a way of stripping illusions away. It forces a man to face the truth about who he is when love is no longer validating him. Through the pain, he begins to ask new questions. What do I truly deserve? Why did I settle for less? What kind of man do I want to be when no one is watching? These questions become the foundation of his rebirth. Rediscovering self-worth is not arrogance, it is acceptance. It is learning to stand tall again without needing external reassurance. The good man starts to see that his kindness, loyalty, and patience were never weaknesses. They were strengths that were misplaced. He realizes that not everyone can handle the depth of his love. And that's not a reflection of his inadequacy, but of their limitation. This awareness shifts everything. He stops chasing validation from others and begins to give validation to himself. He no longer begs to be seen, he starts to shine. The pain that once crippled him now becomes the reason he sets boundaries. He learns that saying no is not cold, it is necessary. He understands that self-respect is not about ego, it is about preserving peace. The same man who once gave endlessly now learns to give wisely. He becomes more intentional with his energy, careful with his time, and selective with his company. He no longer tolerates what drains him. His self-worth becomes his filter, protecting him from ever lowering his standards again just to feel loved. As his confidence returns, something profound begins to happen. The world starts to respond to his new energy. Where he once attracted people who took advantage of his goodness, he now attracts those who respect it. Where he once tolerated inconsistency, he now demands clarity. He no longer explains his worth to anyone. He embodies it. His focus shifts from seeking love to seeking purpose. He realizes that his mission in life was never to fix broken people, but to fulfill his own potential. The heartbreak that once defined him now becomes the fuel for his ambition, his creativity, and his growth. A good man who rediscovers his purpose after pain becomes unstoppable. He channels the lessons of his heartbreak into his work, his passions, and his dreams. He starts building a life that reflects his true values. He begins to travel the roads he once postponed, chase the dreams he once ignored, and live with a deeper sense of gratitude. He understands that peace is not found in another person's arms. It is found in alignment with one's truth. He realizes that love will come again, but this time it will meet him at his strength, not at his weakness. In rediscovering his worth, he also begins to understand what true love should feel like. Not chaos disguised as passion, but calmness disguised as care. Real love should never leave him questioning his value. It should remind him of it. It should not demand that he shrink to be accepted. It should encourage him to grow. The next time he opens his heart, he will do so with wisdom, not fear. He will give, but not at the cost of his peace. He will love, but not lose himself in the process. There is a quiet beauty in watching a good man rise after heartbreak. He no longer chases people, he chases purpose. He no longer seeks validation, he seeks meaning. His silence becomes powerful because it comes from peace, not from pain. He learns that walking away from what no longer serves him is not weakness, it is strength. He becomes more grounded, more self-aware, more in tune with his emotions. The world will see a calm, confident man, but beneath that calm is the story of someone who was once broken and rebuilt himself from the inside out. Rediscovering self-worth also transforms how he views love itself. He no longer looks for completion in another, he looks for companionship. He doesn't want someone to fill a void. He wants someone to walk beside him on a path he's already built. He understands now that true connection can only exist between two whole souls. Because of that, he no longer fears being alone. Solitude becomes his strength, not his punishment. He uses it to reflect, to grow, and to maintain his balance. Every good man who has been hurt eventually faces a choice: to stay broken or to rebuild himself. The ones who choose to rebuild become unrecognizable to their past selves. They glow differently, walk differently, think differently. They are no longer defined by who hurt them, but by who they became because of that pain. The woman who once caused the heartbreak may never see the man he grew into, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that he found himself again, stronger, wiser, and more peaceful than ever before. His rediscovery is not just about healing from a relationship. It's about returning to his essence. It's about realizing that everything he was searching for in another person, love, respect, appreciation, peace, already existed within him. Heartbreak only removed the distractions that kept him from seeing it. Through pain, he found purpose. Through loss, he found clarity. Through rejection, he found himself. And now, as he stands tall once again, he knows that his worth is not something to be given away. It is something to be honored. When a good man finally heals, his heart becomes wiser, not colder. He learns to love again, but differently, not from a place of desperation or longing, but from a place of awareness and strength. The pain he endured taught him valuable lessons about himself, about love, and about human nature. He no longer seeks perfection in another person, nor does he expect love to fix him. Instead, he looks for connection built on mutual respect, growth, and emotional maturity. Healing doesn't make him immune to love. It makes him ready for a love that is real, balanced, and conscious. After being hurt, a good man understands the importance of emotional boundaries. He knows now that not everyone who enters his life deserves access to his soul. He has learned the difference between someone who appreciates him and someone who uses his goodness as convenience. When he loves again, he does so with open eyes, guided by discernment rather than blind trust. He listens more to people's actions than their promises. He observes consistency, effort, and honesty. He no longer falls for charm. He falls for character. His heart still feels deeply, but his mind has learned how to protect it. This transformation does not happen overnight. Healing is not a straight line. It's a process filled with reflection, solitude, and quiet strength. There are days when he still feels the weight of the past, but now he handles it with understanding instead of bitterness. He doesn't blame love itself for the pain. He realizes that it was the wrong alignment that caused suffering, not love's essence. Love in its purest form was never the enemy. It was the misunderstanding of love, the attachment, the expectations, the illusions that brought him pain. Once he separates love from pain, he allows himself to believe again, but this time with wisdom guiding his heart. When he meets someone new, he no longer rushes to prove his worth. He knows now that love should flow naturally, not be forced or earned through sacrifice. He values peace more than attention. He would rather wait for something genuine than entertain something shallow. The good man who is healed understands that real love feels calm. It doesn't come with anxiety or confusion. It's not about chasing, it's about choosing. Two souls choosing each other willingly, without games or manipulation. His new way of loving also reflects a deeper understanding of himself. He realizes that his capacity to love is one of his greatest strengths, not a weakness. The heartbreak didn't destroy his ability to care, it refined it. It taught him to love himself first, to pour from a full cup instead of an empty one. When he enters a new relationship, he brings wholeness, not wounds. He doesn't expect his partner to heal him because he has already done the inner work. He can now give without losing himself and receive without guilt. His love becomes balanced, strong yet gentle, passionate yet peaceful. He also knows how to communicate better. In the past, he might have suppressed his feelings to avoid conflict or to appear strong, but now he understands that vulnerability is not weakness, it's honesty. When he loves again, he expresses himself openly. He's not afraid to share his fears, his needs, and his boundaries. He values emotional transparency because he knows that silence only creates distance. He has learned that love cannot survive in the dark. It needs truth, communication, and effort from both sides. Trust, once shattered, becomes sacred to him. He doesn't give it easily anymore, but when he does, it's because he feels safe. And when he feels safe, he loves with depth and devotion. He is loyal not because he's afraid to lose someone, but because that's his nature. Loyalty is part of who he is. But now he knows the difference between loyalty and self-neglect. He understands that staying loyal to someone who disrespects him is not love, it's self-betrayal. So he balances loyalty with self-respect, and that balance becomes the foundation of his future relationships. The healed man no longer fears being alone. Solitude no longer feels like emptiness, it feels like peace. He enjoys his own company, pursues his passions, and finds fulfillment in his personal growth. This independence makes his love even stronger because he doesn't need someone to complete him. He chooses someone to complement him. He realizes that true love doesn't come from needing each other, but from growing together while remaining whole as individuals. When a good man loves again, his love carries depth. It's steady, intentional, and pure. He doesn't play games or use affection as manipulation. He doesn't run at the first sign of difficulty, but he also doesn't tolerate disrespect. His love has boundaries and his heart has direction. He loves with clarity. He knows what he wants and what he won't allow again. The woman who receives this love will experience something rare, a man who has known pain but still chooses kindness, who has been broken but still believes in connection, who has every reason to close his heart but chooses to keep it open. Perhaps the most beautiful part of his healing is that he no longer sees love as a risk. He sees it as a gift, one that he now gives mindfully. He knows that not every story will last forever, but every story can teach him something. He no longer fears endings because he knows he can rebuild. Love no longer threatens his peace, it enhances it. The scars on his heart become reminders of how far he has come, not marks of what he lost. And when he finally finds a woman who sees him for who he truly is, not for what he can provide, but for what he embodies, his love becomes transformative. Together they create a bond rooted in respect, honesty, and balance. He will love deeply again, but this time with wisdom as his guide and self-respect as his armor. Because once a good man has healed, he doesn't just love better, he loves right.